All right, so DraftKings, huh? They're everywhere these days, right? I mean, online sports betting, it's huge, and it seems like they're leading the pack.
Yeah, no doubt they've definitely carved out a nice little space for themselves. But the big question is, can they actually turn all that hype into, long-term success?
Well, that's what we're here to find out, right? So let's dive right into it. We're going deep on DraftKings today, no stone unturned. First up, we got to talk about those financials. Got to see what kind of numbers we're working with. And I got to say, at first glance, they're pretty impressive.
Yeah, they're definitely eye-catching. I mean, a 26.3% jump in revenue year over year, that's nothing to sneeze at.
It's like getting a 26% raise. Sign me up for that, right?
Huh, right. Who would want
So
that?
what is how just
Let's
revenue, right? Their net income. Are you ready for this?
hit me with it.
Up 182.60%.
Okay, yeah, now those are some serious numbers.
Triple digit growth.
Ye-
That's the kind of stuff dreams are made of.
It is exciting for sure, but, and I know I always have to be the voice of reason here, we got to remember context is key. This is a brand new industry we're talking about,
Yeah.
so that kind of explosive growth, it's almost expected early on.
So the real question is, can they keep it up?
Exactly. And that's where things get, well, a little more interesting. You see that little dip in their quarterly revenue,
Yeah, down 5.95%. I mean, it's not huge, but it definitely caught my eye.
right? And in this game, even a small dip can get people nervous. So that's something we'll definitely want to dig into a little deeper.
Okay, so we've got the good, we've got the, let's say, the interesting, but what about the really good? Because their EBITDA, that's through the roof, right? Up 172% year over year. Now, that's got to be a reason to be optimistic, isn't it?
You're not wrong. It is a positive sign. EBITDA, remember, that's all about how efficient their core operations are, how much money they're actually squeezing out of their business. And a jump like that, yeah, that tells me they're figuring some things out.
Music to an investor's ears, right?
Definitely. But, it's never that simple, is it?
There's always a but.
Always a but. And this time it comes in the form of insider selling.
Ah, yes, the dreaded insider selling. You mentioned it earlier, and frankly, it's got me a little puzzled. I mean, why should I care if someone inside the company decides to sell some stock?
It's not always a cause for alarm, that's true. But it can be a little, let's say, unsettling, because it makes you wonder if the people who know the company best are selling, what do they know that we don't?
Okay, that makes sense. So it's more of a potential red flag, not necessarily a deal breaker, but definitely something to keep an eye on.
Exactly. We're talking about gathering clues here, trying to piece together the full picture.
Hmm.
And insider selling is just one more piece of that puzzle.
Okay, so we've got this mixed bag so far. Impressive growth, but a few blips on the radar, a strong EBITDA, but some insider activity. Where do we even go from here?
Well, to get a little more clarity, I think it's time we see what the market itself is saying about DraftKings.
Ah, yes, the wisdom of the crowd. Or, in this case, the wisdom of the charts. You're talking technical analysis.
You got it. We're going to look for those patterns, those little hints in DraftKings' stock history that might tell us where it's headed next.
All right, let's unpack that. What kind of hints are we talking about here?
Well, we can start with the obvious one, right? The stock price itself.
Right, because at the end of the day, that's what everyone's looking at.
Exactly. And over the past month, DraftKings is actually up over 13%.
Okay, not bad. So there's definitely still some upward momentum there.
There is. And if you zoom out a bit, look at the year-over-year picture, it gets even more interesting. Up 37%.
Wow. Okay, so those are some pretty solid gains.
They are. But, and this is where the technical analysis gets really interesting, we have to look beyond just the raw numbers.
Right, because like you said, it's all about the patterns, the underlying trends.
Exactly. So one of the tools we use for this is something called a simple moving average, or SMA for short.
Catchy. So what does this SMA tell us about DraftKings?
Well, basically, it helps us smooth out all the noise in the day-to-day price movements and see the bigger picture trend. Think of it like, using a map instead of just driving around randomly.
Okay, so instead of getting bogged down in every little dip and spike, the SMA shows us the general direction the stock is heading.
Exactly. And right now, the 10-day SMA for DraftKings, it's down slightly.
Okay, so not a huge drop, but maybe a sign that things are slowing down a bit.
Could be. Could be. It's like tapping the brakes a little bit. Doesn't mean you're stopping, but you're definitely easing up on the gas.
Got it. So the SMA is giving us a bit of a yellow light. What about that other indicator you mentioned, the RSI?
Ah, yes, the relative strength index. This one is all about momentum, trying to figure out if a stock is overbought or oversold.
Okay, so kind of like a game of tug of war. If one side is pulling way harder than the other, something's got to give.
That's a great analogy. And right now, DraftKings RSI is sitting right in the middle, around 46. So neither the buyers nor the sellers have a clear advantage.
So neutral territory, no strong signals either way.
For now, yeah. It's like the market's still making up its mind about DraftKings.
Okay, so we've got mixed signals from the technical analysis too, huh? This is getting tricky.
I told you it was interesting, but you know what else loves a good puzzle?
Don't tell me. AI.
Bingo. Artificial intelligence. Remember those AI predictions we talked about
Oh
earlier?
yeah, the robot investors. Fill me in. What are they saying about DraftKings?
Well, they seem to like what they see. DraftKings has an AI-powered score of 63, which is considered a buy signal.
Okay, so the bots are bullish, but why? What are they seeing that we're not?
Well, for one thing, they're picking up on some positive trends that go beyond just the financials. For example, did you know that DraftKings job postings are up 7%?
Really? They're hiring in this economy.
That's right, they're expanding, which suggests they're pretty confident about future growth.
That's a good sign for sure. And what about all those new users? I read somewhere that their app downloads have gone through the roof.
You're not kidding, up a whopping 186%, with an average of 23,000 new downloads every single day.
Wow. Okay, so there's definitely a growing demand there. That's a lot of potential customers. So we've got these mixed signals from the financials. The technical indicators are kind of a wash, but the AI and alternative data, they're painting a much rosier picture. So what's the verdict? What should our listeners be thinking about as they size up DraftKings?
Well, that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? And unfortunately, there's no easy answer.
Okay, so where does that leave us? It sounds like DraftKings is at a real crossroads here. On one hand, you've got some really strong growth. Those AI signals are looking good. But then there are those little red flags popping up too, right? Like that revenue dip, the insider selling. So what's the bottom line? What should someone like me, someone who's trying to be smart with their money, what should I be thinking?
You know, it's almost a textbook case of proceed with cautious optimism. Here's the thing. DraftKings is playing in a space that's changing so fast, it's almost impossible to keep up. I mean, the online sports betting market, it's still the Wild West out there.
Yeah.
Huge potential for growth, absolutely. But with that comes a whole lot of uncertainty.
So you're saying it's still too early to tell if DraftKings is going to be a true winner in the long run?
Not necessarily. Remember those AI insights we were talking about? Those algorithms, they're learning all the time, right? They're crunching numbers, analyzing trends, trying to get a read on the future. And right now, they seem to like what they see with DraftKings.
But you're also saying we shouldn't just ignore those more traditional signals, right? Like those technical indicators that suggest maybe, just maybe, the stock is losing a little steam.
Exactly. It's all about balance, finding that sweet spot between the old and the new. I mean, think about it like this. You wouldn't bet on a horse just because it had the best odds, would you?
No way. You got to look at the jockey, the horse's track record, what the weather's doing, the whole picture.
Exactly. And investing in a company, it's really not that different. You got to look at everything, weigh the risks and rewards, and then ultimately it comes down to your gut feeling.
So, what are the biggest things to watch in the coming months? What should we be really paying attention to?
Well, for starters, keep an eye on that insider trading activity. Is it just a few isolated incidents, or are we seeing a pattern here? And those short-term technical indicators, how do those play out? Does that downward trend in the SMA continue, or does it reverse course?
So, basically, stay alert, stay informed, and be ready to adapt.
Exactly. And never forget, there's no such thing as a sure thing. No crystal ball, no matter how fancy their algorithms get.
That's part of the fun, right? The thrill of the unknown, the possibility that you might just hit it big.
Absolutely. And hey, who knows, maybe by the time we do our next DraftKings deep dive, we'll have even more information to work with, more insights to share, and hopefully a clearer picture of where this whole thing is headed.
Well, I, for one, am looking forward to it. But before we wrap up today, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, AI. It's one thing to use these algorithms to crunch numbers, predict stock prices, but at what point are we relying on them too much? At what point does it go from being a tool to being, I don't know, almost like we're letting them make decisions for us?
It's a slippery slope, that's for sure. And it's a question we're all going to have to wrestle with as AI becomes more and more integrated into our lives. How much autonomy are we willing to give up? How much of our own judgment are we willing to hand over to these algorithms?
Big questions, no easy answers, but definitely something to think about, right? As we enter this brave new world of AI-driven insights.
Without a doubt. It's not just about understanding the technology, it's about understanding its impact on us as individuals, as a society, as a planet.
Couldn't agree more. And on that note, I think we've given our listeners plenty to chew on today. We've explored the world of online sports betting, taken a deep dive into DraftKings financials, and maybe even dipped our toes into some philosophical waters along the way.
A true deep dive from beginning to end.
It really has been. So, to everyone listening, keep those minds open, keep asking those tough questions, and keep exploring. This is just the beginning of the conversation.
And as always, happy diving.
Until next time.